Okay, so the frequently asked question for today's video is why is my computer so slow while I'm surfing the internet? Now, this one is huge because the internet is such a big part of our daily lives now, and that's really great. There's so much cool stuff on the internet, like our videos, so thank you very much. And there's all kinds of great social networks, and email is just fantastic. And then there's the business side of it. It's just amazing how the internet has just revolutionized the speed of business. And so, because we have so much tied into the internet and our computer, when the internet's running slow, it's just a pain. I totally know how this feels. Believe me, I go back to 1993 on the internet. And just to give you an idea what dial up was like back then, I remember showing a friend hey, I found a cool picture of one of my favorite football players, Rufus Porter, for the Seattle Seahawks. And I showed him that on the computer you could get pictures that you couldn't get in the newspaper, and that was fantastic. That was out of sight. But it took like 3 hours to download a picture, and so I can totally relate to slowness on the internet. It is definitely terrible, and I just love how every year the internet just keeps getting faster and faster. So, what causes slowness on the internet? Well, let's talk about the usual suspects. The biggest one by far, and this is true for almost any slow computer problem, you're going to see this theme throughout these videos, is when your system resources are maxed out. If you don't have any RAM left or any CPU left, then your computer can't really do anything. Its hands are tied. You've reached the limit. That's why it's important that you weed out things like in our last video we talked about programs that auto start, because they're just stealing system resources. Uh, there are some legitimate background processes like your antivirus and firewalls, like we talked about. But it's really important to stay on top of your Windows startup so that way you can devote as much of your system resources that you have in your PC for things that you want to do, like surfing the internet. Another big one is when you have a large browser cache file. And I'm really glad that I brought up the dial-up days, because this is great. Gives a great segue into browser cache. Now, cache is just a fancy word for storage. And back in the old dial-up days, they developed web browsers to have a special storage area that it calls it the cache file. So when you visit a web page and you download a file off of a website, like a picture, then you have a copy on your computer. That way, if you go to that website again, you don't have to re-download it. Now, why was that important back then? Because it took a couple hours in some cases to download an image file. So that way you could visit a website again and you don't have to wait and wait and wait. Now, browser caching is still legitimate because it just makes the whole experience faster in general. But it's not as important as it used to be in the dial-up days. I'll say that much for sure. But modern web browsers are still caching. So every time you hit a web page, it's downloading all the image files, and it's not just pictures too. When I say image files, like the logo on the company's website, that's an image file, or the submit button or the login button, the buttons that you click on, those are all image files. So every time you hit a page, your computer stores all those in the browser cache, in the cache file. That way, if you hit the page again, it just loads it right up instead of having to download them again from the website. And so caching is actually really important because it keeps the entire internet running faster. That way, the web servers that are out on the net aren't having to constantly serve up things like image files. It's really brilliant. I gotta hand it to the architects who came up and engineered browser caching. Um, I'm chuckling because maybe I told you more about it than you wanted to know, but your browser is caching. And a lot of people don't even know that this happens. And so the larger your cache file gets, the slower your web browser reacts, because then it just has a list of potentially millions of files to go through to load that single page. And so that is another reason why surfing the internet can get slow on your computer. And you could have hardware problems. You could be experiencing slow internet because you just flat out have a problem with your cable or DSL modem or the service. And so a good rule of thumb is to contact your service provider first whenever you're having slow internet. But the service could be fine and it could be a problem with the router. I find that, or the modem. I find that more often the case that someone's having a problem with their modem than with their service. And here is what happens with your modem. And I used to work for DirecTV, and this same thing happens with your DirecTV receivers or Dish Network cable boxes even. Same thing happens. Just the way electronics work is over time, these little boxes just collect static. And the more static they collect, the more prone they are to having performance degradations. That's just how it is. So, what to do? What do you do when these kind of problems come up? Well, when you have low system resources, check the processes that are running in your task manager. Your task manager will tell you if you have processes running in the background. And here's a good example. Just the other day, I was developing some cool artwork in Photoshop, and I decided to check my email or something like that because the person I was collaborating with had given me an idea for this artwork in my email. So I needed to check that out. So I pulled up my web browser. It was just going really slow. And the reason was, come to find out, is I went to my task manager and Photoshop was just stealing all of my CPU. And because I was working with a really large file in Photoshop. And so as soon as I closed Photoshop out, I saved what I was working on, closed it, and the internet was just working great. So your task manager will show you all that information. And in the tune-up videos, we're going to show you how to access the task manager and how to decipher what it's telling you. Next important thing is to clear out your browser cache and also clear out your cookies. Your cookies are saved in that cache file. Because this is all temporary stuff. You don't need it. Yeah, it speeds up the internet like we talked about, but it's good to clear it out. I'd like to clear your browser cache every 30 to 90 days. And that really gets your browser itself zipping really quick. And that's another thing we're going to show you in the tune-up videos. Because it's a little different in Firefox than Internet Explorer, and even Internet Explorer 7 is different than 6, and now we got IE 8, and we're just going to show it all to you. Maybe you're using Safari or Opera. We're going to show you how to clear your browser in all those different scenarios. And this is a big one. Kind of jumped the gun with this one, but reboot your cable and DSL modem. Oh my gosh, I don't know how many people have told me that their internet is just slow, and I have a 7 megabit connection on DSL and it's dedicated, and I've got a static IP and I've got everything. Why is it running so slow? And happens all the time. And the easiest way, well, this is the way to reboot your cable or DSL modem. What you do is you just unplug it from the power. Just unplug the modem from the power. All the static electricity leaves. You leave it unplugged for 5 minutes to 15 minutes. Excuse me, and then plug it back in, and I guarantee you, once you reboot your cable and DSL modem, it's going to run so much faster. And this is another really good thing to do every 30 to 90 days that most people don't ever do. So those 3 things right there, they're going to cover about 90% of the problems that are out there. The other 10% I'm going to say are problems with your service provider, and that's when you can call up your provider and talk to whoever in India or however they've got their tech support set up. But these are the real big ones. Catch the 90% with these three things, and then your internet's just going to be running great. I want to thank you for tuning into today's video, and just a quick reminder, you can catch all 20 videos in the Digital Survival series by going to gotslowcomputer.com. Until then, we'll see you on the next video.